Welcome to AI Decoded. We're going to take you on the road this week. A few weeks ago, Stephanie Hare, who is with me in the studio, said after one of our programmes that we focus a lot of our attention on development here in the UK and in the United States, but what about artificial intelligence in Germany, the powerhouse of European manufacturing? What are they doing on artificial intelligence? So, she's been to find out. Welcome.
Welcome.
What did you discover?
So many things that I cannot wait to show our audience. We talked to people in government, we talked to doctors, scientists, researchers, and artists. We've got a beautiful show ahead that's going to really take you behind the scenes of what's going on in Germany with AI.
Let's take a look.
Grey skies over Berlin. A fitting backdrop for Germany as a whole. Only 2 weeks ago, its coalition government collapsed. Its economy is stuttering. Core industries like car manufacturing are under threat from competition abroad. Could artificial intelligence get Europe's most powerful economy back on track?
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to the first episode of Artificial Intelligence Decoded, set in Berlin, Germany. It's the 35th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and we're here at the Falling Walls Science Summit, looking at a gathering of some of the world's greatest experts on artificial intelligence.
The summit has attracted Europe's brightest minds in science and technology. Founder Sebastian Turner hopes they will build bridges and break barriers.
This weekend, actually November 9th, is the day the Berlin Wall came down. And this historic date raised the question, in particular for those who never expected the Berlin Wall to come down, which are the next walls to come down?
One of those people breaking barriers is Richard Socher, whose pioneering research into prompt engineering led to the explosion of generative AI.
If you could make Germany one of the best countries in the world to do AI, what needs to change?
Yeah, I've actually been asked that exact question by the German Chancellor and the previous Chancellor. You have to start early on in high school. After English, which is hard to avoid at this point, you gotta know how to speak English. After that, the second foreign language you should study should be Python. Because if you don't understand programming, it's very hard to participate constructively and actively in the future. AI is also ultimately a program. Second, it's very hard and painful to fail, period. Even in Silicon Valley, it sucks if your company doesn't work, right? It's very, very stressful. But at least in Silicon Valley, if you do fail, a lot of people said, well, you tried something really ambitious, and we're okay helping you succeed and try to succeed another time. It's culturally very painful and legally very, very painful to fail in Germany. Then there's just not enough of a VC ecosystem, venture capital ecosystem in Germany. It's a little bit better in the UK, but also like overall in Europe compared to just Silicon Valley. It's very underdeveloped. Then there's a not invented here mentality in large German companies where they say, oh, this little startup, we could build this ourselves. And of course, in theory, Google, Amazon, and Facebook Meta could build any startup, right? But in practice, even those big US companies are buying a lot of smaller companies, and it helps them. It helps them to innovate faster. It helps them to go to market faster. It helps them to bring young, new ideas into the company and then overall be more competitive in the market. And so that also isn't very strong in Europe. The bureaucracy of starting companies is also just too much. I think it needs to be continuously reduced. As you're a small and smaller company, I think there needs to be less regulation. And then once you're really you found your product market fit and you could become profitable, then you can start to regulate maybe more.
So while Germany may need to make some changes to make the most of AI, it can also play to its strengths. I asked Under Celik, a Berlin-based researcher, what he thinks is the most promising sector.
It's definitely going to be healthcare, but Germany still has a very strong hold on healthcare systems. So like all these big research institutes like Charité, and they are investing a lot in R&D in AI systems.
So I'm very lucky to be speaking to you today from the Heart Center of the Charité Hospital. In this unit, we have some patients who are in a very serious and unstable condition, and the doctors are using a new form of technology based on artificial intelligence to monitor the two biggest risks that can happen after surgery. We're going to go behind the scenes and talk with a clinician, one of the heart doctors here, who's using artificial intelligence to monitor those risks and try to catch them early so we can maximize the benefits of patient care.
We are using AI as an additional surveillance tool to monitor our patients for two very common and significant postoperative complications. If we identify these complications early, that we are able to intervene and then maybe change the course of the disease so that we can help our patients in the best possible way.
And I see you've got a big machine behind you. Can we go over and take a look at it?
Yes,
You talk
sure,
us through?
of course.
After you.
Okay, thank you. So what you can see here is the user interface. And here we see the raw input data, in this case vital values such as heart rate or systolic blood pressure or the temperature of the patient. Here we see some selected laboratory values. And of course we also see the trends and the dynamic change for these values.
Right.
And
this is all live, real-time data.
yes, and now the probability for postoperative bleeding is estimated to be 1%, so it's really low, and this also makes sense if we examine the patient. Okay. And we can also see here the trend over the last 2 hours. So we were starting at 25%, which is...
It's getting better.
Yes, this is the view we get for postoperative renal failure. Okay. And what we can see here is that we were starting at 74%, which is reasonably high. And then we have a declining trend, which is reassuring for us, but the risk is still estimated to be 25%. What we are doing is, with this algorithm, we try to identify those patients who are at a very high risk of these complications, but we also try to identify those patients who are very unlikely to experience those complications.
And have you any data on how accurate the algorithm is compared to human doctors?
There was a big scientific study that showed that these algorithms performed better than regular doctors.
So who invented this AI tool? Meet Professor Alexander Meyer.
To be able to work with data is like a superpower. Everything seems to be more easy afterwards because we have time. We look at all data in a calm environment, and very often we have to ask ourselves the question, why did we miss it? Because there were clear signatures within the data that something would happen. Here at the Charité, everybody saw the potential. People came, offered me their help, and I had here also the funding opportunities to realize all projects. So we could use technology to actually solve and address a clinical need. So it was not technology looking for a problem, but a problem we're looking for technology to solve it, and AI was here to help. We are witnessing a very exciting time in the AI space. We came from image processing using convolutional neural networks, which is a special type of neural network or artificial intelligence to catch patterns within images or videos. And we all know this and use it daily when we use our smartphone, or we also use it in the hospital for radiology. And now we just witnessed 2 years ago the advent of generative AI. So now we see AI is producing something meaningful, and we are just starting to use this in the clinical work. AI will augment medicine and will increase the operational efficiency and will increase patient safety and will enable better outcomes. And in the end, there will always be physicians. AI is an instrument, such as the CT is an instrument. So AI will enable us to have better precision in our decisions and to be more focused on prevention and the correct therapies.
Healthcare is a strength for Germany, but what about the rest of its economy? We asked the new Minister for Education and Research.
The car was invented in Germany. The bike was invented in Germany, many more products. But we're losing grounds because when you're economically successful, you get arrogant. You think, nothing can happen to us. And we see now how vulnerable we are. So therefore, it is extremely important that we have a more science-friendly environment, that we have a more business-friendly environment, that innovations take place in this country. Many startups had their starting point here, but when it comes to money to grow, we're not, unfortunately, a very risk-friendly country, and that has to change. And then children need to have access to technology, need to have access to an iPad, need to know something about artificial intelligence. They need to know something about the algorithms. They need to know something about where to get the news from, how to critically read who is behind that, what is the intention, where is the source. And if you don't know this, you haven't finished school, in my opinion.
Wow, you had some extraordinary access. People always ask me, how does this really appertain to our everyday lives? And when you look at the filming in the hospital, that's where it's really making a difference. But here's the thing. We've talked about it as a competition. In fact, Tony Blair, former Prime Minister, said we really need to get going because this is a global competition and we need to be first. How do we compare from what you've seen? Because you said to me initially, I don't know what Germany's doing. How do you think, having been there now, we compare to our biggest European competitor?
So I think it's a cultural question. Some countries want to be first, but some countries want to be the best. And I think Germany probably falls into the latter category. Trust is really important in Germany. So they don't want to roll something out, particularly in a hospital setting, unless it is trustworthy. So it's not about taking a cautious approach, it's about a trust
Is it also
first.
that fear of failure as well that one of your contributors spoke
I think
about?
probably in terms of the investment, the VC ecosystem space, and culturally, yes, there is that. And that's probably linked with when we put something out, we want it to be, gold standard.
It's amazing, isn't it, how culture actually applies to what we're doing here in this futuristic environment. And culture really does play a big part of it. Listen, we'll take a short break. The other side of the break, we're going to talk about how the Germans are applying AI to the visual arts. So often we are told that artificial intelligence is statistics on steroids. In other words, it's just really intense mathematics. But how do you apply that to the visual arts? How are the Germans applying it to music, to art, to visual things that I think a lot of people recognise when it comes to AI?
So Berlin has always been this magnet for creatives. And what I loved about this and what you're about to see is people are using AI as a tool, as a collaborator, and it raises that question of when does AI become an artist? So let's take a look.
So we're here in Berlin, walking along the East Side Gallery. This is one of the remnants of the Berlin Wall. We just came from the Falling Walls Science Summit, where we were looking at how researchers and scientists are using AI to break down walls in the scientific process. Now, we're going to go and visit two Berlin-based creatives, Matt Dryhurst and Phil Langer, to see how they're using AI to break down the walls of their creative process.
Generative AI is transforming images and video, creating a new art of the possible. For some, these images provoke curiosity and wonder. But for others, they can feel unsettling and weird. Phil Langer is a creative working at the cutting edge of what AI can achieve visually.
So talk us through how you would at least start.
So I would need, in the beginning, I would need like several images of that person. The more images, the better, basically. Ideally also like in different light and different angles. Mm-hmm. He put this in this, I'm using Midjourney here, for example, and then you have this prompt that kind of pushes, of course, the AI in the direction that you want.
So a prompt is like a phrase or a set of instructions.
Exactly. So the prompt kind of tells the AI what you want to have. It's the recipe for basically the result.
Okay.
And it is also a little bit, or might be like also the recipe of like the creatives of the future, I guess, because of course it's very easy to recreate these images somewhat, but if you want to be very specific, you need also very specific prompts.
It's the art of the prompt.
The art of prompt might be the future, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would just say, I kind of describe what we want to see. I want like a hybrid image of an elegant woman and a cat in front of a gray background. And I would adjust it to like brunette hair and like brown eyes. And I would just adjust certain parts of the same prompt for different animals.
Okay, so you're already telling it, this is what I want the output to look like.
Exactly, yeah.
And then it's almost like a child that you're having to correct it. It'll give you versions of it and you'll be like, more this, less this, getting closer, no,
exactly.
that's still too far.
You have to kind of steer these results. What I said before with the curating, you get like somewhat random results, and then some of them are more human-like, some are more like animal-like, and you kind of steer the direction. You say like, let's continue with this image, and you can also adjust the prompt. If you see something doesn't work quite right with the eyes or with the hair, you adjust the prompt in a way that it works better.
Do people feel emotion, do you think, when they look at an AI-generated image?
I think it's a mix, because they are very beautiful images and they're nice to look at, but they have this uncanniness. You kind of don't know, is this real or not? And I think this mix of like a beautiful image to like kind of like disturbing images, when they come together, it's kind of like an impactful image, and that makes them kind of complicated, but also like impactful. I think young people also now, like children, not children, but people of the younger generation, I think they're already questioning the reality of these images that are out there, of this content, right? I think it goes like even in politics or culture, whatever it is. I think our generation is different in that respect, that we always assume stuff is real. Like you said, we grew up in an era where we saw a photo or a video, you assumed it would be undoctored also in the news. But I think nowadays young people are always kind of thinking this might be already generated or manipulated in a way, and that's going to be even more in the future.
Every day it feels like a new question I don't have the answer to.
But maybe life isn't about having answers. Maybe it's just about being curious enough to keep asking.
I always thought by now life would make more sense.
Do you see there being any danger of losing the skills and the training that people like you had when you were coming up in your career? If somebody can just leapfrog all of that and go straight into using these?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to work with these tools. I think it's, they're kind of like, when you have a creative thought, the time is now that between the creative thought and executing this idea is like gone to zero now with these tools. And that's kind of what makes it so powerful. Like you don't have to have a long skill set, a long experience with very complicated software tools. You can just basically, technically just type it in and then you have a result that you want. But because everybody can do this now, I think there's going to be a flood of content out there of AI-generated creatives, right? So I think to stand out, creativity is even more important than it was before. So.
Are you an optimist or a pessimist when it comes to AI?
I don't know. Neither. I'm a hybrid.
You're creative.
No, yeah.
Either way, you're going to have fun with it.
Yeah, I guess.
Hello? Hey.
Matt Dryhurst and Holly Herndon are stars of the art world. Their new show at the Serpentine Gallery in London brings together choirs from across the United Kingdom to create a groundbreaking art form, a meeting of humans and AI through music. We're visiting their Berlin studio to find out how it works.
The actual sound of AI to us is the sound of fans. Our studio often sounds like it's about to take off, just because all the cooling necessary. And so actually Andrew in the studio came up with the idea of figuring out how to alter the fans, so the speed that the fans turn, in order to have them play music acoustically.
Jerry rigged a bunch of smaller fans,
exactly,
and now you're going to be able to show us how you got them to make
and
musical notes.
Exactly, and for some reason only 2 of them are working right now, but they can play... Exactly. So we wrote a songbook explicitly for AI training. The idea being that if you sing the book from start to finish, you will have covered the full range of the English phonetic language in order to be able to contribute your voice to an AI model. So the songbook itself was inspired by old kind of like Renaissance music and Sacred Heart music from the American South, which actually has this kind of diasporic relationship with English folk music. We took that book throughout the UK, recorded 15 choirs, who volunteered their voices toward a large data set that we then used to train an AI model. And so when you go to the show, you'll be able to see every stage of the creation of this model, hear its inputs and its outputs, and some of the music that led to the songbook itself. And so the 15 choirs own their voices, they own the recordings. We actually had to negotiate with them to use them for our show, which is consistent with the principle. And so then they basically have a protocol that's put in place for them to be able to expand the trust and maybe value that data. And the reason we did it is because there's not really many examples right now of people proactively finding ways for people to co-own and govern their data. There's this big open question of what to do with people scraping the internet, what to do with your likeness in these AI models. And so we're like, okay, this is an opportunity for us to set some precedent of saying you can actually do this slightly differently. I will still desire to go into a room and hear someone sing beautifully. None of this changes any of that. And if someone wants to reject all these tools and just sing beautifully, then I love that they'll do that,
So why are these two artists based in Berlin and not Silicon Valley?
I think that Silicon Valley generally is its best PR engine. A lot of this work is happening there, and a lot of the work is not. For instance, on sound-based works, a lot of the researchers we've worked with have been cataloged, like in Barcelona. Some of the best researchers for sound are based in Europe. When it comes to the image model space, what characterizes AI image models is they were pretty much all built in Germany on data sets curated in Germany. If you are training kind of like world-class scientists or remarkable artists or whoever it might mean, and ultimately they have to leave to the United States in order to realize their ambitions, that's a problem. You want clarity in order to be able to assume risk, right? Because you can go, and I've known of people who do this, and they hire 50 people and then they have to shut shop because it turns out that they were out of bounds on certain things. So regulation is good. There will always be a desire for somebody who's really good at telling a story or who's in person with people, right? I mean, actually the value of this source of truth or whatever becomes even more important, arguably, in a time where it's really difficult to discern the provenance of information because there's a bot somewhere in the middle. Gathering different people to coordinate to accomplish something, because fundamentally, particularly when you're dealing with large AI models, a Flux, a ChatGPT, you're looking at kind of the aggregate input of all of us together. Like it's us in aggregate coordinated by algebra.
So what's holding people back from really engaging with artificial intelligence?
It's become somewhat fashionable in more urbane kind of circles to show incuriosity, which is really odd. That's like new for me, coming from the arts. But the last 5-10 years, I think there's been a lot of backlash about tech, a lot of kind of like caricatures, some of which are qualified, but like a lot of caricatures of tech. And I think that's the only thing I worry about, is that people might be encouraged to be incurious about this stuff.
They're turned off rather than turned on.
Yeah, exactly. A social stigma starts to be generated around it, right? Like the tech bros and this kind of language. Ultimately, I just don't think it helps anybody. Not to say that people who are, there are many people who are critical of tech who I think are very well qualified in their criticisms, but it's more just you don't want to see a curiosity gap emerge.
I'm so glad you went. I've learnt so much tonight. Most of all, that you look great as a cat. But in terms of just taking two elements of that. One is Phil, who you were creating chimeras with. He says that he is a creative. So it's not just put in a code and it produces it for you. It seems that he's working with that and it evolves.
Yeah. There's an iterative process, which is interesting because Matt and Holly's art program is called The Call, which is like prompt engineering. You type it, you write a call, and the machine responds, just like in call and response choirs. So the parallels between human activity and human machine activity are clear.
So long as people engage, because he's saying what we've got now in the visual art world is people who really are engaging and people who are incurious or are turned off by it.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's limited
golf.
to the art world. I think that's kind of all of us. And that's why we need to get out of just looking at Silicon Valley or the US-China tech race. We want to look at all countries around the world and how they're engaging with AI. That's where the curiosity gap can be closed. They're each doing something different with it, and it's so inspiring.
What about your curiosity? Because you were desperate to go to Germany.
Yeah.
Now you've come back. Your views?
I've never been as inspired by uses of AI as I have been seeing it used in Germany. So thank you to all of our friends in Germany for that. And it's made me want to go and do this for other countries. So look out, France, and look out, everybody else. We're coming for you.
You're taking the camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to that. Stephanie, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much. That's it for this week. Our thanks to Stephanie. Just a reminder that if you are enjoying the AI Decoded series, then all the previous editions are on our YouTube site. So do have a look at that. Let's do it again, same time next week. Thanks for watching.